our next guest. We're talking to David Pogue from CBRE, the Global Director of Sustainability. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Tell me what, it says here on my notes, how to get investor clients to go from good enough to great. We can talk about that, or we can talk about anything else that you're thinking is important here at the conference.
Great.
What's going on?
Well, that was a topic that I had kind of considered here
Sure.
because I think it's one of the more important ones as it relates to technology and all the things that we see here. We're at a point right now where a lot of owners, many institutional buildings, have gone to a point of just beginning to really pretty good.
Yeah.
And by that, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, everybody got on board with Energy Star. They might have had buildings in the 50s or 60s, and they really worked to get them to high levels, and now they're all Energy Star labeled.
Right.
There's a whole congregation of buildings at high levels of Energy Star. So that didn't differentiate you anymore. So you had to do something different. And what they did is that they moved toward LEED certification. So now hundreds of buildings, in fact, I think it's maybe as many as 1,500 buildings in the US are now LEED EB. Mm-hmm. So everybody concentrated on that. There's now a bunch of these LEED EB buildings. In many markets now, that doesn't differentiate you. So, but the problem that we have is that people have spent time, they've gotten good enough, high energy performance, pretty good performance overall, good sustainability standards, LEED certified, which says they're good.
Right.
But our concern and really our challenge is how do you now move them further? Yes. How do we get them from good enough to great? And a lot of the technology that's out here in this room today and that we've seen throughout the conference is that kind of technology that could make that move to great.
Right.
But how do we begin to motivate and influence our clients to take that step? So that's one of the challenges that we think about a lot and one of the concerns that we have.
I mean, it all comes down to getting inside of their head and pushing those levers that make people go, it's the same thing that makes people lose 5 pounds or clean out their closet. Right. It's a stuff you don't want to do that you just got to get present to. So how do you do that?
Well, again, and I had mentioned this earlier today in the session that we're in, we're really in the business of influencing. We don't own any of this property. And we have 1,000 clients, so they all have different motivations and the like. And so to your point, we have to understand really what their motivation is, who they are as a client. But at the same time, I think we have to help move the discussion. The point I made earlier today, too, is that oftentimes a client sees, they may have 40 buildings, they see building, 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 building. Each of those buildings is independent because it's an independent asset and an independent acquisition. Our job, to some degree, is to get that view that it's now a portfolio. Because you can begin to make portfolio decisions around data or around systems and systematize things. That's the step. That's one of the first steps we need to do is to get our clients to believe that what they have is not a series of buildings, but rather a group of buildings that have common characteristics and we can help them. So once we can do that, I think then it's easier to introduce a data management system or a commodities purchasing system or maybe some real-time metering or things of that nature. But for us, it's about influencing the discussion and taking it to the next level.
What is the one technology that you see in your role as sustainability that all companies could employ pretty easily that they're not employing? What are some of your secret tricks that people who are watching this who want to do that, what do they need to be doing?
And here's the problem to that question. Most of the technologies and things that we've done are really already existing in these buildings. Many of the buildings, in fact, I always say that most buildings are better built and designed than they're being run. And so the first thing that everybody can do is really just go back and evaluate the systems that they have and use them better. Oftentimes, building automation systems and things have been dumbed down. And so the first thing that we suggest is that people go back and really make the building do what it was supposed to do. So it's this retro commissioning kind of thing that people go through. That doesn't help sell any new technology necessarily.
No, that's okay, but I mean, that's
but in the end, particularly where I come from in California, Title 24, building requirements there for a number of years, really determined that these buildings are actually really well designed and engineered and built. But once these pesky people get in, either the occupants or the management teams or whatever, that's when things degrade.
So let's say I own a building. How do I get my management team that's very business as usual? Do I have to bring in an outside person to kind of be my little, commands whisperer, my systems whisperer? Because my team's going to be running it as well as they know how to run it. How do you suggest going in, sifting through all that data and upgrading?
Well, you do need to change the paradigm. And so even with us as an organization, we have to do interventions, if you will, into the building. So it's, it's not bringing in necessarily another firm, but it's bringing in another eye or part of the firm to evaluate and to help them understand that what they're doing really isn't working. And you have to understand too, a building manager has 1,000 things to do. And even if we get them to perform better, or behave differently, and ramp up performance for a little while, then as soon as you turn the attention away from that, there tends to be a pretty quick degradation of a lot of this stuff. So to your point though, you need a corporate commitment, and you need the, like for instance in our group, the asset services group, we have made it a mandate that certain practices have to be followed. But that didn't come from the building level, it came from leadership, saying that these are things that you must do at these buildings.
I see.
So it comes from the top.
Interesting. So if you're working with a CBRE, you guys have sustainability ninjas who kind of swing in and help. If you're not with the CBRE, where does someone look to do that?
Well, there are plenty of great firms that can come in and help you.
Yeah.
And because there are solutions out there, and a lot of them start around the energy group. There are a lot of energy solutions, and so I would suggest going out to the market and picking one of these folks. That's one of the concerns that we have also, is that there are there's little benefit for us to be heroic, but there's a real risk to failing.
Right.
And so that's where we're on this influence program that we have a difficult time determining a technology to widely use. So technologies will have a variety of applications across the portfolio, and they will succeed. We'll have lots of different kinds of successes. Hopefully over time aggregate those and do the better of them a lot. But in the near term, I think a lot of folks are going to do one at a time.
I've figured out how to make what I have run better. Let's say I've gotten there. Is there any other, what would you say is the next key to really nailing it down?
Real-time data, from my sense. It's the aggregation of data, but also to the extent you can get real-time data, because then you can modify those curves that they talked about today, and it really has savings, but with real-time pricing now for utilities. And it also gives you an opportunity to demonstrate to people what you're doing is having an impact. So rather than looking at a bill 30 days old, if you can look at a bill or at a pulse 3 minutes old, you can have a whole lot more influence in changing behavior.
Terrific. Thank you so much for being
My pleasure.
with us. Thanks a lot, David Pogue. CBRE, you're watching Conference Live, and we'll be back with more after this.